Minister Rojas, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Will you share with us some of your country's priorities here during the 80th UN General Assembly?
Well, this one was one quite particular. I would highlight two of them. 2 years ago, when the new treaty for the high seas, which is actually called BBNJ, right? Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, was open for signatures. Our president signed it. He was one of the first one in signing it. We were the second country in the world in ratifying that new international agreement, and we are very, very happy that Friday, just before the General Assembly, the 60 ratification came in. That means that the treaty is now ready to enter into force. It is a very important element that was missing in our environmental institutional treaty, because of course the high seas, over 80% of the oceans, are not part of the national jurisdiction, and we did not have a way correctly to protect it. And the other aspect is, of course, is that Chile wants to have the secretariat in the city port of Valparaíso. So we have been very committed to so that this treaty can enter into force, and so that's definitely an excellent news of something that has happened in the world, and it's happened here. So that's one of the highlights, I would say, in the environment. So for good news for the ocean, good news for the planet. And the other aspect, of course, is the Secretary General in general very interested in climate change, convened a Climate Action Summit, and again, our president was there. We submitted our NDC, National Determined Contribution, as part of the Paris Agreement ahead of COP30 that's going to occur in November in Brazil, and thereby showing how important climate action for Chile is. We're very committed, 10 years of the Paris Agreement. Climate action has changed the life of Chileans for good.
Speaking of COP30 happening in the region this year in Brazil, and for the first time, Indigenous peoples have a seat at the table. Can you tell us about Chile's Indigenous population and their contribution to this?
I think as is seen in countries around the world, it is Indigenous people, Indigenous communities that are the best guardians of nature. And as a Minister of Environment, my role is to protect our very valuable nature. And hence, they play a very important part in how we protect nature, how we do that through the declaration of protected areas, for example, but also through the management of those. Once you have declared them, okay, this is part of the territory that's very valuable, we're going to protect it, it needs to be managed as well. And in that management, the governance through the work with Indigenous people is very critical for us.
How would you rate your country's progress on the Sustainable Development Goals? We're 5 years away from 2030, especially the ones particularly to climate action and life below water, something that you've been talking about.
Yes, yeah. Well, from what I have already shared here, we have a long-term implementation of these goals. We know that in many parts of the world, the implementation of the SDGs have slowed down, in particular after the pandemic. But in the case of Chile, we have, I would say, have had a good work. We have laws, we have the institution in the country so that we can take good care of our nature, and we have embedded these in our national policies. So, for example, we were saying that because we are part of the Paris Agreement, we have to submit new national determined contributions, our NDCs. In there, we have committed for climate, but also for biodiversity and also for pollution. I think this is very important for many developing countries. As a policymaker, you have to prioritize. And when you find measures that you can implement and can give you more than one benefit, that synergy it's very good, right? Because you get more out of the resources that you put into a certain objective. And that's what we have done with our, for example, climate change law and the National Service for Biodiversity. So they are very much embedded in cross-sectorial policies in the country, and that has allowed us, I would say, to advance in a satisfactory way.
I would also like to point out that you're also a scientist. So you were
That's true.
talking policy, but when you put your science hat on, I mean, you really have to make sure that they complement and
Absolutely, absolutely. Our president said it yesterday as well, and it was actually when we started this climate summit, it started with the science. There were two scientists that were also convened to remind us of the urgency of the climate crisis, and that we have little time left, but we know the solutions. It is very important to define your policy through evidence and through science. And indeed, the fact that I'm a climate scientist has helped me, I guess, to make sure that our policies are aligned with science. But this is very much embedded as well in our policies, in our laws, in the way that we defined our policies.
your country is very rich in natural resources. How do you balance, policies that are helpful for people in terms of development, while at the same time preserving the natural resources? And what's the final say when it comes to, if it's harmful for the environment, we won't do it?
Yeah. Let me give you two examples where we have managed to incorporate environmental goals in industrial development. Chile has lithium, very important critical mineral for electromobility, right, for the green energy transition. That lithium, in the case of Chile, exists in wetlands, high altitude wetlands in the Andes, salares. And these places are very unique, very rich in biodiversity, very rich in a biodiversity that we don't even know, microscopic biodiversity. So there you have a real challenge, right? A trade-off, like what do I do? Do I exploit these wetlands for lithium, or do I protect them? What we have done with our national lithium strategy is that 30% of those wetlands are going to go for protection. We are not going to touch them. They're going to go for protection, and in that way we are fulfilling our commitment with the 30 by 30 goal, by which 30% of all relevant ecosystems have to be protected by 2030. And not only that, the other wetlands that are going to be exploited, they are going to be exploited for lithium with new methodologies, with new ways that do not use as much water. This is, of course, very important sources of water in the desert. So where there is water, there is life. And so I think this is a good example that you can see that a productive industry, development industry, can go hand in hand with protection.
You're talking about a lot with what you're doing with water. What can you share with other countries who are struggling to do the same, or looking for ways to preserve water?
I would say that coming to places like the UN, like the General Assembly, where we understand that the complex problems of the world need to be addressed in a multilateral way, that has many implications, and one of them is sharing experiences and cooperation. So this is also part of the agenda and the reasons why we're here, why we're sharing, and why I also would like to thank, in fact, to give me the opportunity to share this good news with you. Let me very briefly give you another example: green hydrogen. Chile is also very interested in developing green hydrogen as a solution for climate change. Some places where we would like to develop that new industry is also home for many migratory birds. And we have managed to organize that industry in a way that we can avoid or give some safe places for birds. And those, I think, examples that are important to share, that we can show that addressing climate change is very important for the planet, it is important for the people, and it should not, and it can actually go hand in hand with protection of biodiversity. It should not be a trade-off.
And staying on the topic of protection and protecting lands, over 20% of your territory is protected. Talk to us about the importance of having national parks and these type of protected areas set aside just to have, for no one to touch.
When you go to Chile, people are very proud of the nature that we have. You know, Chile is a very narrow and very long country, which means that we have many, many different landscapes, from the desert to Mediterranean type of climate, to cold rainforests, and to glaciers, and even to Antarctica. And so the Chileans feel very proud of that nature. And nature protected in parks is important not just for biodiversity, but for many other activities like tourism, for example. So many people come to Chile to visit the country because of those landscapes. So it is something that is value, but it can also have an economic impact on lives of many people, of an important part of the population. So I guess that there are many reasons why you want and need to protect, and we have understand that, and it makes also social sense. We feel it like part of our identity, and it makes economic sense as well.
Minister, tell us about the importance of Antarctica and your recent trips there.
Yes, wow, that's one of the very, very special opportunity that I had. I have been twice with the president in Antarctica. Chile was part of the 12 countries that signed the original Antarctic Treaty. So we have always a very close relationship with Antarctica. And of course, southern Patagonia is a very important gateway towards Antarctica. We went back in 2023 with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. We did a trip there just before one of the Conference of the Parties, one of the COP. Antarctica is a continent for peace and science. And it should stay like that. And it's also a place where we're seeing that climate change is having an impact, although it is so remote. So it was important to see that, to make a call from there that we have to take care of the only home that we have, which is planet Earth. And at the beginning of this year, 2025, I had the opportunity to go with the president to the South Pole. It's the third, I think, head of state who goes to the South Pole. It was a very long trip, and it's very, very special, very, very emotional to be the place the furthest away at this 90 degrees south. So, and important to say that the commitment of Chile is that this continent should stay a place for peace and for science.
Minister Rojas, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.